Hello and welcome to the Empowered Couples Podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is us debriefing our own argument that we had in the airport when we just traveled to uncover the real root cause.
So yes, we're going to tell you about our very interesting, not enjoyable disagreement in the airport that happened on the way back from Florida here. And it's just a few days fresh, right, that we've had this happen. And we want to do this because we want to be those authentic people, right? Even though we live and breathe these tools that we teach, we coach couples all day, every day. We just got off of a session and we talk about conflict, we talk about repair. We're still human. And you're going to have disagreements sometimes, no matter how much you learn. If you read our book and you attend our web classes and you do our courses, it's not going to mean you never have a disagreement. And I'm going to pretend, Aaron, for a second that I'm an athlete to use this analogy, okay? I think about football, even though I didn't ever play football. And if you think about what makes a team great, it isn't just that they practice. It's that they also review the footage, right, Aaron? Is that accurate? Tell me I'm right.
Yeah, it's roughly in there.
Oh, I feel that's part of it.
I mean, it's good. I would say it's not just that they practice, but then they practice and then they go and play a game with it. Like they test it out. They get in life. Then, yes, to your point, those teams that kind of stay roughly average just go to the next game. Mm-hmm. However, those that are really increasing their performance is because we practiced the play, we went out and tested it. Now we debrief. We look at the game film to see how we could be even better.
Yes.
For the next game.
Exactly.
And in this case, the next game is, you're going to have some other challenge or conflict come up. And in this case, why we wanted to do this specifically was because even with conflicts coming up, you can use the tools and you can escalate, you can shorten argument hangover, but we didn't really keep it from escalating. So in this case, we sort of failed in the momentary part of it.
De-escalation, right?
Yeah, that's right. Probably de-escalation. Our argument hangover was probably a little bit longer than it usually is for us. So let's just get into it, right? We want to dive in so that you see specifically how to debrief these things so you can say, okay, what patterns are showing up? And let's bring those to light for each of us. We don't have to agree on all the details so that we actually can get better. And then this specific way we handle it doesn't have to go this way again.
I do want to say, because I know that as we go through this, some people are going to go, oh, man, I wish we could get good like you guys are. We don't do any kind of repair. We barely say I'm sorry. So I actually just feel we wouldn't be doing people justice if we didn't recommend getting our making up and moving forward guide. Because the only reason we've gotten good at repair, even if it takes a little longer than it normally does, is because we practice repair, because we learned the steps, we practice it, and that's what we really teach now. So you just must have our making up and moving forward guide. It gives you the steps, how to repair, how to practice, what to say, what to personally reflect on. And the personal reflection is a big piece because it's easy to just blame the other person, which keeps you stuck. So I just wanted to say that before we even got into our disagreement. So go get the making up and moving forward guide at thecouplesexperience.com/guide. And the link will also be in the show notes. So with that said, let's start off with me getting triggered because let me just give you a sense of what was happening, right? We're on vacation. We went to speak at a mastermind, which was amazing. And then we turned it into a family vacation. Aaron's family, a few of them, came down from Ohio. We had this amazing time at the beach. We had this great speech. And
you're driving a golf cart around.
Golf cart around. You would think, okay, awesome. They're just living the great life. But we still have human things going on. And so the morning that we were leaving, I was already kind of in a sensitive spot because there's a few things that aren't repaired in my life. And I'm going to be as transparent and honest as I can be on here because I feel like people are not honest enough about these human things going on. So on the way to Florida, I received some brutal text messages from my own mom. And by no means am I throwing her under the bus, but I just want to be transparent with you all. My mom struggles with her mental health. She's been diagnosed bipolar. And for the most part, she does a good job at managing it, taking care of herself, but she's kind of in a hard space right now. And unfortunately, she takes that out on me and my brother sometimes. And it's really hard. It's been a part of our journey, even growing up in our teen years, and have had an on and off relationship with her because it can get really intense. And so I received some messages you should never receive from your own parent. And it really hurt me. And I had to hold back the tears, like holding my own child on the way to Florida, reading these messages from my mother. So I was already kind of in a sensitive spot because it just kind of brings up my inner child stuff of that relationship with her. Anyway, I compartmentalized. We're on the trip.
Well, I guess something to be even more real about it. You weren't just holding back the tears on the way to the airport. You were actually releasing those tears and sharing how impactful and hurtful this has been. And you were sharing that with my mom, who was in the backseat as I was driving the car to the airport.
Yeah, so that's fast forwarding a little bit. So now it's the day we're leaving, and I end up sharing, with his mom, because I just feel like, man, your mom is amazing. And she just offers so much love and support. And I just wanted to share that gratitude with her. And so I was just like, thank you for coming, for being here, for being who you are. Here's how I'm feeling with my mom and what this is going on. But I also had gotten a text message from another family member that kind of just made me feel a little bit isolated in my own family, a little bit like, oh man, like I'm a little gypped is what it kind of felt like. And so I was in a sensitive spot. Oh, and one other thing that made me in a more sensitive spot, I had this thing going on with a friend, which I'll have to share with you guys another time about, because just talked to that friend today and feel a lot more repair going on. But it wasn't last week, and I was really feeling it. So I'm triggered on the way to the airport to come back home because of all these things that it felt like were happening in all these relationships. And I was really just feeling, I think, a lack of it wasn't love, but more so a nurturing. What about, I'm holding my own child. What about kind of me being held was kind of the feeling, like an energetic holding, not a literal one. And so we're at the airport. Aaron is like, he knows something's up. He heard me say that to his mom, and you were trying to be supportive. Right? So this is kind of getting into the next segment. So I've got my own trigger going on. It wasn't about Aaron, right? And sometimes it isn't your partner that triggers you. It's other stuff that's going on that's putting you in a more sensitive state. And that's when we can be reactive if we aren't aware that we're triggered. So I've done a lot of personal work of building awareness of when I'm in that state. Anyway, so you knew kind of somewhat what was going on, but you didn't know to the degree. You didn't know that I was like borderline going to cry again, kind of shaky because I was feeling so vulnerable. So you go to try and offer support. Anything you want to add on that segment?
I'm trying to fast forward this so we can actually get to the thing, but also provide enough detail. I had a sense you were going through, obviously you're going through something. So I was just trying to ask some questions about, hey, did you ever express to your dad it more directly that you were looking for more support, for example? So it was just simply that. And then, and as you're listening to this, you're going to see like how very simple things turn into
big things,
much bigger things. And it's not about that one thing. So then for me, it just felt like you got annoyed in your attitude. And then your response back to me was, this thing that, we talk about from time to time is like, well, I already said it once, so I shouldn't have to be saying it again. I've already said it. Mm-hmm. And then, so for me, I was like, okay. So thinking this up to myself, that felt a little harsh and unneeded. So I was just taking a few minutes to be with the emotion I was feeling, which was just like, okay, that's frustrating. And it's annoying that she had the attitude. So I just was sitting there. I was like looking out the airport window, and so I was just
quiet.
Yeah, I was quiet, and I was going to downregulate what I was feeling.
And so that only compounded it for me because I was already feeling emotional and alone in a way. And so it made me feel even worse, right? Not that you were trying to do that. Like your intent was to downregulate your emotions, but on the receiving end because of what I already was feeling. So this is where we're going to get into the patterns, right? So in this debrief, and we already had this conversation, by the way, so we're debriefing our debrief with you guys. We had like a good maybe 45-minute conversation on Sunday, I think it was, about this. And so we're giving you some of the highlights. But we realized, okay, I'm triggered, so that's one aspect. Aaron was attempting to support, but kind of missed the mark. And I had talked about that in an Instagram story this weekend, that sometimes we miss the mark in offering our partner support. Right? Like that's what you were attempting to do. It just wasn't in the exact way I was needing it. Now this takes us in to what escalated things, right? So we could have de-escalated at that point, which normally we probably would have. We're pretty good at de-escalation, but this time we didn't do it. So what started to escalate things were a couple of patterns that we fall into once in a while. And I'll address mine, and then if you'll address yours as well. So one of the things I can do sometimes is make a remark, and I can kind of try to make it sly, like, oh, this isn't a direct criticism, but I am kind of giving you an underhanded little thing. So anyway, what I kind of said was, oh, so you're going to do that shutdown thing again?
Yeah, that's not what you kind of said. That's what you actually said.
Okay. And I was unconsciously doing that in a kind of an attempt to like get him to engage, because he was shut down and I was already feeling triggered and alone. But it wasn't effective, right? I didn't need to say it that way. It was like an underhanded criticism. So not only that, but another part of what I can fall into sometimes that escalates things is I didn't honor the pause. So a little while later, like a few minutes in, you had said, we kind of both had said, like, let's take a pause. And we did for a second, and then I kind of came back in. I need to remove the kinda. This is what I did,
yeah, this
right?
is what actually happened.
Not kinda. What I did was just jump back in and kind of like kind of bite a little, like a dog would just kind of get back in the fight. And so I didn't honor the pause, even though we both even said, let's take a pause. I was like, I wanted to get back in there and fight. So those were two things that I contributed to the escalation. And what about for you?
So for me, like right when that happens now, I get really frustrated because for us, we're clear on agreements. We also have tools that we teach. And so I get into a place where I start pointing out all the places that basically you're not keeping to what we would coach anyone on.
And but he starts listing them, right? So that's what really gets me going too, is like you start listing, like you're building some case against why I'm worse, is what it feels like. It feels, the word I used with you is like, it feels antagonistic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, there's really not a lot for me to say about it. I mean, I could say like what I said and then how that went on for a couple of minutes. And then I'm in line getting in the airport and it's like, we're in this pause and you like jump on me about, it's like, no. And then, so now I'm just like literally shutting it down. Like, nope, I want to pause. Like I'm starting to like just face away from you. Cause I'm like, I'm not engaging with this. This is an agreement that's being broken. So, I mean, it really just does escalate from there. But in our debrief, you said like, look, I ultimately want to be able to hear from you the advice, you could say, like what I could do better. But you said that's just not the time to do it because it does feel antagonistic. It feels as if I'm making you like more and more wrong for not being a good relationship tool implementer or whatever it is in the moment. And yeah, I do see like I really unconsciously I'm starting to build up this list of things you're now doing wrong. Now, from some regard, it's like a part of my mind is like, well, what I'm saying is true because you're not doing these things. But that's the pattern right there. Like that is not serving anyone. It's not serving you. It's not serving me. It only escalates. And is there a time to quote unquote coach each other and say when you could be better or what pattern? Yes. And when is that time? That's what we're talking about.
The debrief.
So ours came like, was it a whole day later?
Yeah,
I think it was. Some time. It was a whole day later. All in between there, as all of you probably know, we try to go. What happens now is you just try to rehash all the details and you go back, who said what, who escalated it, who broke an agreement, who was in the wrong, what went first.
Who said what first?
Yeah, like, and it's just, there's a part of all of us that just needs to feel like our side is being expressed and it's like understood.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes off as sometimes, well, the way I remember it and see it is better than yours, and you're missing pieces, and that literally never gets you anywhere positive.
Mm-hmm.
But I do acknowledge and recognize that there's an aspect like I need for me to share my perspective on this and how I was impacted right at the end of it. And again, those details don't resolve things. And so we kind of tried to do that for like a day. Like we kept on getting back into it. But then when we said, okay, you know what? Right now, after we had our meditation, we can have one or two conversations. One is, let's talk about our vision and our overall purpose for this next year, or let's like actually debrief this thing.
And we did that because even though it wasn't, the most fun conversation to have, but we just know that if you don't repair, if you don't circle back and make sure it is resolved and reconciled for both people, you carry that baggage into the future. It doesn't disappear, you guys. You have to get that. It doesn't just go away.
Well, you know what? And even that, it's even more present than that. It's like you have an energy that is anger towards your partner.
Defensiveness.
Or, you just...
There's a hostility.
Hostility, that's a good word. Yeah, you just don't want to be around them. And it's like, you got to get rid of that, for one, because what are you doing? Sitting on the couch watching a movie at the end of the night? It's like you're all pissed off and steaming.
Yeah.
And
then you make a
there's
remark.
no intimacy. There's nothing. So what we specifically did to debrief, and I'm a more logical person even inside of... It's like, I need like structure to have emotion be present, if that makes sense. So I said, can we have a conversation for debrief where we set our intention and then we say what we need to say, and at the end of it, we are able to take that segment, say it's complete, and then not have it influence and impact the rest of our day.
And that was great because us having agreed to that at the end, you circled back to that and you said, hey, remember, this is the intention. We both heard each other out. We both acknowledged our parts. We got to the main patterns that were showing up. And at the end, you were kind of ready to just be like, okay, back to a good day. I needed like 2.5 minutes to just change up because I was I
have to say a funny thing about that.
Okay, go ahead.
In that exact moment, I did the pattern that we had just talked about too.
What?
Well, because you said I need time. And so literally what I started to say was to coach and remind you of our intention from the beginning. Like, well, I don't know, maybe it was a reminder, but I did feel the urge. So I'm like, oh my gosh, the pattern is showing up already. So I went to like coach you again, right? Like, hey, remember I said that we're going to segment this, and here you were needing extra time. And I was like about to jump in there and coach you like, no, you should be able to move past. Don't you remember the intention I set?
Right. But
so that was an interesting thing.
I was like, I need 2.5 minutes to just change up this energy. And so I did. I like just did something to like just kind of change the focus. Like I'm a very kind of energetic, kind of sensitive person. So I just needed to like shake it off. And so it wasn't long before I like came over to you and was like, okay, I'm ready to move back into a good day.
Yeah.
And so just some highlights, right? This debrief is something we wanted to share, to be human, to have you see that you're not the only one, even if you learn and practice and teach these tools. But
so let me say something about that really quick, actually, because get the Making Up and Moving Forward guide, because that's going to help you in this specific step, because you're probably going to need to repair and take responsibility for impact.
Yes.
Now, for us, what we were able to do is set the intention for the debrief, right? And we do the 5 R's all the time. But what we said was as I mentioned, there's this need that we both, I know, feel to share. Here's how I saw things. Here are the details. And here's how I was impacted. And we both agreed that we would let the other just let that out and then not invalidate. We weren't going to talk about, I agree, I disagree, that's not how it went, it doesn't make sense, none of that. We had done that the previous day, and obviously it wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So it was going to be that, and once that happened, we were specific on, okay, what are just the patterns that we both need to acknowledge?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the quote-unquote responsibility piece. And at the end, that's what we did. Did we feel as if the other partner fully saw it our way? No, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
And at some points, you might not get there yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But does that mean you can't repair it and move past it? No. Impact. And then for us, it was, now I'm just saying it again, what were the patterns here? And what do we need to commit to interrupt these patterns for the future?
Exactly. And I think another highlight from this is going back to triggers and just for yourself, becoming really aware when you are triggered, whether it's about your partner or about something else. And in those moments, knowing what you need. Hey, what kind of support do you need from the other? Or do you just need to be quiet and kind of reflect? Because if we aren't aware, our triggers can make us unconsciously react, because when we're triggered, things don't feel safe. Everything is the enemy, right? And so it's like we're going to protect ourselves in any way. And so we can kind of be on the attack, like, rah, I'm on the prowl and who's coming after me and I'm going to fight back. And so,
and not everyone, by the way.
Yeah.
Some more tend to shut down and withdraw and not say anything.
But would bite back if they felt a threat too. So my point is, be aware of your triggers. Be aware of when you're triggered, your patterns, recognize it, let your partner in on, where you're at with things. So we encourage you to master this debrief process. If you don't debrief, if you don't repair, you carry that baggage in, resentment gets built, you're going to be hostile towards each other. You're going to build evidence and a case against each other. So not only use what you've taken from this episode, but just get our Making Up and Moving Forward guide. You guys, it is something every couple needs to know, how to repair, the steps, the prompts, mistakes to prevent, and we simplify it into one guide that you can pull out when you're debriefing after an argument. So go to thecouplesexperience.com/guide, and the link will again be in the show notes. But we hope you enjoyed this episode, and there's a lot of new listeners. So if you're enjoying our content, will you take a second to give it 5 stars on whichever platform? That's a great way to kind of give back to us and to let us know that you're enjoying it just by, clicking the 5 stars, maybe write a sentence or two. But we love you guys. We record these episodes for you, and we will talk to you on the next episode.